Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, where in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at the British Naval tech tree. Now this video will be a fairly brief overview of all the ships. With most of them I probably won't go through most of the details. It'll be a brief general overview of the tech tree. If you want specific overviews of specific vessels, let me know in the comments and I will do what I can. When the update's released, I will ideally grind through the entire tech tree and then do videos on most of the individual ships. But as for this video, it will just be a standard general overview of what's in the tree so you can get a quick glimpse of each vessel and its sort of basic capabilities. So starting off, we're going to go and take a look at the reserve level vessel. This is the MTB11 Series. This is a rank 1 1.0 rated vessel. In terms of armament, it's got two sets of quad 7.72mm Lewis machine guns. And it also has two 18-inch Mark 12 torpedoes, which are mounted in torpedo tubes in the rear of the vessel. This is an 11 crew vessel with a max speed of 37 miles an hour and a displacement of 22.4 tons. As armour goes, there is no armour on this vessel. Going into X-ray, though, you will see where the torpedoes are mounted, as well as the machine gun turret system, ammunition stores, and it has 3 engines, which go to 3 props, as well as 3 rudders, which are behind the props. Big main fuel tank in the centre. There is no radio. There is a radio station actually in the rear of the bridge, and there's the main bridge section there. You have pumps as well, obviously to pump out water. In terms of mods, this can carry 4 Mark 7 depth charges, as well as being able to have a get a mod to improve the belts for your machine guns. There's also various mods for standard ship things, as well as torpedo mode, which improves your torpedo's speed and those sort of things. But it does also remove some of the torpedo max distance as well. Next up on the tech tree is the Vosper 1 series and the Vosper 2 series. From the looks of it, they're effectively the same ship. I'll do a quick view of. I'll mainly overview the first one, then I'll do a quick look at the second one. So going into preview, we'll see that this is a standard really torpedo boat. Very basic looking, rank 1 1.3 rating. It's got the it's got 2 sets of the Lewis machine guns again, but this time it's only a dual set rather than the quad, and they're in these 2 sort of turrets here. It also has 2 533mm Mark 8 torpedoes, crew of 10, 39 mile an hour max speed, so it is a little bit faster than the reserve vessel, and a 38-ton displacement, so it's got a bit of a higher displacement there. Also, it costs 2,900 RP to purchase. There is no armour on the vessel. Going into X-ray, though, you'll see that you've got a lot of the fuel tanks at the back as well as the centre. This is still a tri-engine vessel, and there are the turrets and all those various things. And it still has, does it still have a radio? Yep, still has a radio station down below the bridge. Going into mods, we'll see that this cannot carry depth charges. It's only the standard mods. You've got smoke screen, those sort of things. So it's a fairly basic vessel. Now we have the Vosper 2 series, which by the looks of it is effectively the same vessel, just with some minor improvements. First off, they have got rid of the it's the same vessel, but the only change really is that they've got rid of those Lewis machine guns and replaced it with a single 20mm Mark II cannon, and then a turret of dual 12.7mm Vickers Mark V machine guns. You still have the 2 Mark 8 533mm torpedoes, crew of 12 this time, maximum speed of 40 miles an hour, so it's a little bit quicker as well, and a displacement of 38 tons. This costs 7,900 RP, so a bit of a boost there, and this is at a rating of 1.7 rather than 1.3. Going on to X-ray, you'll see it is effectively the same ship, though, in terms of general mechanical aspects. And in the mods, you'll see this can carry depth charges, the Mark 7 depth charges, and it can carry 4 of them. I believe that's on mounts on the back of the vessel. Presume it's those side mounts there. Now moving on, we're going to move down, we're going to go to the Fairmile A. Now this is of course on part of the line of motor gun boats that will move to the Fairmile D, which is of course the premium vessel. So here it is, the Fairmile A ML100, very thin sort of boat type thing. Very light vessel, not very quick. It basically only goes 24.7 miles an hour. This is a 1.7 rating again. This does have, though, a quarter-pounder Hotchkiss cannon, which is mounted, I presume it's that one at the back. So you got the Hotchkiss cannon. You also have a set of dual Lewis machine guns, 14-person crew, 24.7 mile an hour top speed, and a displacement of 57 tons. This also has a required RP of 7,900. Going on to armour, there's no armour on this vessel. Then moving on to X-ray, you'll see it's pretty standard. You have barrels of fuel, radio station, bridge, all that sort of stuff. And on mods, you can carry Mark 7 depth charges, and you can carry 12 of these depth charges, so that's a nice additional weapon. Not sure where they will be positioned on the vessel, presuming that they will be possibly on racks on the back or something like that. Actually, no, they'll be here on these side racks along here, just noticed them. But on to the next vessel then. Here we have an MGB 61, MGB obviously standing for Motor Gunboat. This is another 1.7 rated vehicle at rank 1. Interesting looking vessel here. You've got a Rolls-Royce quarter-pounder at the back, or 40mm 2-pounder cannon, sorry, a semi-automatic cannon, with 1,200 rounds of ammunition, so that's that one at the back there. Then you also have 2 sets of dual Vickers Mark 5 machine guns, which are 12.7mm. Crew of 12, 39 mile an hour top speed, so it is a pretty quick vessel. Displacement of 34 tons, and the required RP is 9,200. Going into the armour, there's none, as with other vessels, apart from a small piece on that of hardened armour on that 2-pounder cannon at the back. Going on to X-ray, you'll see this has 2 engines. You've got all that ammunition at the back. Again, you have a radio station, 2 fuel tanks. Yeah, pretty basic ship in general. In mods, though, you can carry 2 of the Mark 7 depth charges, as well as getting mods to improve the shells on your guns. And I presume that those will be mounted on these 2 side racks for the depth charges. On to the next ship, the Dark Class Fpb 1101. So looking at this, is a 2.0 rated vessel at rank 1. First off, the gun on this is pretty big. This has got a 114mm 8 CWT QF Mark 1 mounting, 100 rounds of ammunition, a very big sort of short barrel gun there on the front of the vessel. And it also has a 40mm Bofors Mark 1 mounted at the back, as you can see there, obviously an anti-aircraft cannon. This has a crew of 15, it still goes at 39 miles an hour, so it is a pretty quick vessel, and a displacement of 64 tons. This requires 11,000 RP to unlock, so it's not exactly a cheap vessel for 2.0, but it is something that I think will be fairly practical. You've got pumps, of course. You do still have a radio station, I think. Yep, you still have a radio station. You've got the bridge there, which is over 2 levels. Then you have fuel tanks. This has 2 engines still, as well as the steering gear and those sort of systems. The engines actually go forward into a transmission, which then drives the propeller backwards. This can also carry 2 Mark 7 depth charges, as well as getting mods to improve the shells on your 40mm gun. The 114mm gun can only use high explosive fragmentation shells, which have 30mm of penetration. Moving on to the next ship then, we have the Fairmile B, the ML345. Now this ship is a 2.0, as with the last ship, rank 1. This has a few more guns though. This has a 3-pounder Hotchkiss cannon with 300 rounds of ammunition, a set of a dual 20mm cannon mounting, a single 20mm cannon mounting, and a set of dual Lewis machine guns. So obviously you can see the bigger gun appears to be there, sitting on the very front of the vessel. You then have the 2 small Lewis machine gun mountings on near the bridge. You then also have the 20mm at the back. Now this is a crew of 18, a max speed of 19.7 miles per hour, displacement of 65 tons, and a required RP of 11,000. Going on to armour, you'll see there is armour on the 20mm cannons, sort of protecting the gunner, and there's also a piece of 8mm anti-fragmentation armour around the Hotchkiss gun. On X-ray, you'll see it's fairly standard again. You do have a radio station and a bridge, as well as the 2 engines, the fuel tanks, ammunition storage, and the steering gear, as well as pumps, sort of funnels, smoke funnels, those sort of things. Fairly simple as a whole there. You can also get a variety of depth charges and bomb mortars by the looks of this. You can get for the loadouts, you can have either 14 Mark 7 depth charges and 2 Mark 6 mortar depth charges, or you can have 2 Mark 7 depth charges, or you can have 2 Mark 7 depth charges and Again, another 14 Mark 7 depth charges, so you can have 16 of them. As you can see, there's a lot of mountings along the side of this vessel, so a lot of places to put them. Moving on to the next vessel is the Isles class, the T285. Now, of course, all these vessels will be part of the Royal Navy CBT, so you will need one of the premium packs to buy into them, which I will be showing you in a minute. But first off, we'll finish rank 1. So we've got, this is a rank 1 2.3 rated vessel. This has a 4-inch QF Mark 5 cannon with 150 rounds of ammunition. Looks to be that cannon positioned at the front. This also has 3 turrets of single 20mm cannons and 2 turrets of dual 7.7mm Lewis machine guns. This has a crew of 40, travels at a speed of 11.8 miles per hour, as well as having a displacement of 554 tons. This requires 14,000 research points to acquire. Looking at the army, you'll see there's only really ammunition on the 20mm cannons. There's only armour on the 20mm cannons by the looks of it, protecting the gunner. Going on to X-ray, it's standard. It's a lot bigger of a vessel compared to the previous vessels. You have the engine, which looks to be a boiler actually, looks to be a steam-powered vessel with a single propeller, single large rudder, big fuel tank, ammunition storage all over the front of the vessel, pumps, radio station, and the bridge. Going into mods, you'll see that this thing can take 20 Mark 7 depth charges, so that's going to give you quite a bit more explosive power for when you're fighting enemy vessels, and it looks like they'll be mounted on these racks at the rear of the vessel. And finally, for Tier 1, we have the Flower class, the K218. Now, this is a rank 1 2.3 rated vessel. This sits at a rating of 2.3, as I said. Turret, it's got a 120mm BL Mark 9 cannon with 150 rounds of ammunition, and it's got also a 40mm 2-pounder QF Mark 8 automatic cannon, so pretty decent firepower there. I do like the design of this vessel. Looks like a sort of early battleship type thing, sort of a baby battleship. And then it's also got a turret with 2 single 20mm cannons, so not a huge amount of variety with the guns, but it does have a fairly decent amount. Now you also have a crew of 85, max speed of 15.8 miles per hour, and a displacement of 1,300 tons, and this will cost you 18,000 RP to unlock. Going on to the armour, there's no actual hull armour, it's only an anti-fragmentation armour piece on the main turret, and then some standard 12.7mm hardened armour on the cannons, and then also the 2-pounder gun at the back. On X-ray, you'll see it is the same. This time you have 2 engines, a big transmission system, and the ammunition is at both the front and the back. You still have the radio station and the bridge. Okay, so now we're jumping down into Tier 2 for the fleet. And we're going to see that we've got, starting off with the Dark Class FPB 1102, or the 1102. So this vessel seems torpedo class vessel, really, torpedo boat. Rank 2, 2.3 rating. It's got a single 40mm Bofors Mark 1 mounting, as well as 4 533mm Mark 8 torpedoes. This has a crew of 15, a speed of 39 miles an hour, and a displacement of 64 tons, and this will cost you 14,000 RP to unlock. Going to armour, there's no armour on this vessel. X-ray, you'll see that you do still have the radio station as well as the bridge. You have the main cannon here, the main caliber turret, as well as all the ammunition. This is a twin-engine vessel, and the steering gears there, fuel tanks, and all that sort of stuff. Very similar hull to a vessel we've already seen a bit earlier on. And actually going to the mods real quick, we'll see that you can carry 2 Mark 7 depth charges. Now we have the Fairmile D. Now this is the early representation of what will be the premium vessel. This is 1 hull rating lower than the premium. This currently sits at 2.7, whereas the premium's 3.7. This can carry a single 57mm 6-pounder cannon, and that's got 140 rounds of ammunition. It can also carry 2 single 20mm cannons, and also 2 sets of dual 12.7mm Vickers Mark 5 machine guns, and then also 2 sets of dual 7.7mm Vickers Go No. 5 machine guns. It also has 2 533mm Mark 8 torpedoes. Now, in terms of performance, this has a crew of 30, max speed of 32 miles an hour, and a displacement of 105 tons, and it will cost you 26,000 RP to unlock. Going into armour, you'll see that there's only armour around the turrets, and that is the same 12.7mm hardened armour. X-ray, it's all the same stuff again. This time you actually have 4 engines on this vessel. It's quite a big torpedo boat, but you've got 4 engines on it, big fuel tanks, ammunition, radio station, all the standard stuff really. And in mods, you'll see this can carry 2 Mark 7 depth charges, and the gun can only use high explosive fragmentation shells. Moving on though, we'll be able to see that we can next have the SGB, which looks to be another motor torpedo boat. This is fairly similar, a few slight differences. First off, you have a 76mm 3-inch cannon, which looks to be fairly devastating. I believe that's the one mounted near the front, just in front of the bridge. You also have 2 40mm 2-pounder cannons, automatic cannons. You have 2 single 20mm cannons, 2 sets of dual 12.7mm Vickers machine guns, and then 2 533mm Mark 8 torpedoes. This has a crew of 16, a maximum speed of 29.5 miles an hour, and a displacement of 255 tons. Now, for this vessel, sitting at 3.0, it will cost you 36,000 RP to unlock. In terms of armour, you do actually have some hull armour. You've got some anti-fragmentation armour of thickness of 19mm, sitting just rear of the bridge on the hull. You then also have some 12.7mm hardened armour on some of the gun turrets, and then some anti-fragmentation armour of 8mm thickness on what looks to be the 76mm turret. In terms of mods, there's no other weapons you can take, other than changing your shells on the 76mm gun to have a shrapnel gun. Shrapnel round, that is. Next up, we've got the Brave class, which looks to be another motor torpedo boat, sitting at a rating of 3.3. The torpedoes just sit on the side. I presume they're just pushed overboard by some kind of system. This has 2 40mm Bofors mountings, as well as 4 533mm Mark 8 torpedoes. This has a crew of 20, maximum speed of 49 miles an hour, so this is a very quick vessel, and a displacement of 114 tons. This 3.3 rated vessel will cost you 75,000 RP, most likely due to the high speed of the vessel with the fairly decent armament. And in terms of X-ray, it's all the same stuff. You've got these engines, which look to be, I would guess, gas turbines. Oh no, there's not, never mind. There are propellers. I just thought that seems to be the exhaust in that case. And then you've got ammunition stored, torpedoes, the bridge, and the radio station. Okay, it looks like a lot of these British ships do have radio stations, so that's definitely a positive. Jumping into mods, we'll see that you can carry 2 Mark 7 depth charges. So now that we looked at that, let's look at the Fairmile D. I believe this is the tech tree equivalent of the premium variant. So we're going to take a look at that. This is the 697. So this is a 3.7 rated rank 2. This is a rather expensive vessel actually. This is a 120,000 RP vessel. First off, you have 2 sets of single 57mm 6-pounder cannons with 280 rounds overall. You then also have a single dual 20mm mounting. You then have a set of dual, yet again, 12.7mm Vickers machine guns, Mark 5s, and then you have some Vickers number 5 dual mountings, which you have 2 of. You then do have 4 of these 450mm Mark 15 torpedoes, which I presume are going to be the same on the premium version with these torpedoes, which, as I believe this is the same variant. Going on to armour, you'll see there's only some hardened 12.7mm steel armour on the main gun mountings. If you go X-ray, you'll see that it's basically this very similar hull design to the original Fairmiles that we've looked at. The only difference being the sort of on-deck design, where it basically has the torpedoes, the different gun layouts. Is there a radio station on this variant? Let's take a look at that. I believe there is. Yep, radio station. Okay. And in mods, this can carry 2 Mark 7 depth charges, and you can change out the guns for the 20mm cannons. Now we're going to jump down and take a look at the Fairmile C, which is a bit further down on the next line below. This is again a rank 2 3.0 rated vehicle, and this is going to cost you 50,000 RP. Now naval vessels do get quite expensive as they get down. Now this has got a single turret with a 40mm 2-pounder cannon. It also has a turret with a 40mm Rolls-Royce semi-automatic cannon. You then have again a set of two sets of 12.7mm Vickers Mark V machine guns. You also then have again 2 sets of 7.7 Vickers Mark V machine guns. Crew of 16, max speed of 25.7 miles per hour, displacement of 72 tons, and a required RP of 50,000. Armour, again, it's just the 12.7mm hardened armour on the front and rear turret, and going on X-ray you'll see it is basically the exact same thing, with the radio station, the bridge. This time there were 3 engines rather than 4. Going on to mods, you'll see that it can also carry some Mark 7 depth charges, this time 4 of them instead of 2. Going on the 40mm gun as well, you'll see that you can change the shells out for HE and AP, and on the 12s for I and IT bullets or API bullets. Moving along, we have the Fairmile D again. This is the 601 variant, I presume. I presume this will be the same thing, roughly. It's the same ship as the Fairmile D, but they've removed the torpedoes, and I believe have put on some more guns. So it looks like we've been given some more machine guns. Actually, no, it's completely changed, actually. So instead, you've got a single 40mm 2-pounder turret at the front, by the looks of it. And then at the back, you have a mounting of dual 20mm cannons. And then near the bridge, you've got 2 sets of 7.7 Vickers machine guns. And then near the front of the bridge, in these sort of turret sections with what looks to be sandbags on, you've got 2 sets of dual 12.7mm Vickers Mark V machine guns. This is a 3.3 rated vessel, will cost you 75,000 RP to acquire. Crew of 30, max speed of 32 miles an hour, and a displacement of 105 tons. Going into armour, yet again, it's only the 12.7mm hardened armour on some of the turrets, and on X-ray, it is effectively the same thing. This time again with 4 engines though, still as the radio station, and all the basic inside the hull stuff. This can also carry 2 Mark 7 depth charges. Other than that, you can get separate rounds on upgrades for your 40mm gun, your 20mm gun, and also get smokescreen and various other mods. Moving on to the next look at the Fairmile C again. This time the 332. The last one we looked at was the 3312. Now this is a 3.3 rated vessel, rank 2. This will cost you 89,000 RP to acquire. This has 2 40mm 2-pounder turrets, or 2-pounder cannons at least. It also has a single set of 20mm cannons, 2 sets of single 20mm cannons, and then again 2 sets of 2 Vickers Mark V 7.7mm machine guns. This is a crew of 16, a top speed of 25.7 miles an hour, displacement of 72 tons, and a required RP of 89,000. If we look on the X-ray, it is effectively again the same ship in terms of the hull. The only difference is the weapons loadouts, and this can take 4 Mark 7 depth charges, as well as having extra rounds for the 40mm and the 20mm guns. Well, now that we've covered Tier 2, let's move on to Tier 3, starting off with the Clemson L45 class, which is a destroyer. So here it is. So we've got, first off, this is a fairly early destroyer. We do have some armour, but none in the hull. So first off, this is a 3.7 rated rank 3. This will cost you 18,000. So again, we're getting to the lower prices before moving along to the higher priced vessels. So this first off has a main gun, which is a 4-inch QF Mark V cannon. You then have a 3-inch naval gun. Moving on to that, you then have 4 single 20mm cannons, and again a set of dual 12.7mm AN M2 machine guns. This also has 3 533mm torpedoes, which are mounted on that mounting there. This is a crew of 141, max speed of 26.6 miles an hour, which isn't bad for a larger ship, and has a displacement of 1,552 tons. And of course will cost you 18,000 RP. Going on to the armor, you'll see that the 20mm cannons have anti-fragmentation 12.7mm armor, as well as having the rear turret and the front turret seem to have 4.97mm anti-fragmentation armor. Moving on to X-ray, again it's the same thing. You have 4 main engines, big transmission systems for the propellers, twin propellers, single rudder, ammunition, all those sort of things, and a bridge and radio station. Going on to the mods, you'll see that you can carry either a single sort of weapons loadout, which consists of 8 Mark 6 mortar depth charges and Mark 10 Hedgehog mortar charges, I presume, which there are 24 of. You can also get extra rounds for your 102mm cannon. Switching back to this, we're now to take a look at the G class, the H89. Here it is. So this is a 4.0 rated rank 3. This has got 4 120mm cannons. It also has 2 sets of quad 12.7mm Vickers Mark 5 machine guns, which I'm presuming are anti-aircraft protection, as well as having 8 533mm torpedoes. So there are the torpedo tubes. There are the main cannons, really. They're going to pack quite a punch at the 4.0 rating. Not far off other destroyers, though, to be honest. And there are the machine guns. They look to be mounted on top of each other rather than in a sort of square pattern. So yeah, you've got 145 person crew, 31 mile an hour top speed, not too bad, and a 1,920 ton displacement. And this will only cost you 39,000 RP. Going into armor, again, it's the 4.97mm anti-fragmentation armor around the main turrets, and then the 12.7mm anti-fragmentation armor on the anti-aircraft guns. And on X-ray, it's basically the same thing, only instead of having the 4 engines, you have, well, it says that it's 2, but I'm presuming it's 3 looking at the design, and then you've got the transmission to the 2 propellers and the single rudder. Going on to mods, you can then carry only 2 of the Mark 7 depth charges. Moving on, we're going to look at the Tribal class destroyer. This is the F-75. This is the thing that I think was most prominently featured in the initial closed beta test. Now this has 3 120mm mountings. It also has a single 120mm mounting, but that's a dual mounting actually. They're all dual mountings, so 3 dual mountings of one type of 120mm and then a single dual mounting of a different type. You also have a, looks like you have a single set of 4 40mm cannons, which I'm presuming are anti-aircraft. Looks like it's those ones there. You also have 2 single 20mm and 2 sets of quad 12.7mm. You also have 4 533mm torpedoes on a single torpedo launcher there in the center of the vessel. This has a 260 person crew, max speed of 35 miles an hour, displacement of just about 2,500 tons, and a required RP of 61,000. This is a 4.3 rated rank 3 vessel. Going on to armor, you'll see there's no hull armor, but we do have again some anti-fragmentation armor on the turret, which is 3.2mm thick, and then some hardened armor on a lot of the lighter guns, which is 12.7mm thick. On X-ray, yet again, it's a similar thing. You have the engines going to the transmission, twin propeller, single rudder, and a lot of ammunition stored around the front and rear of the vessel, as well as fuel tanks protecting, at least on the rear, protecting a part of the transmission shaft. On mods, you'll see that this can carry 2 Mark 7 depth charges, as well as having extra rounds available for the 120mm guns of both types. Next up is the N class, the G25. Now this is very similar to the Tribal in many ways. This has the 3 dual 120mm turrets, but it doesn't have the 4th one. This has instead a 4-inch cannon, as well as having the same quad 40mm automatic cannons, and then it's 6 single 20mm cannons and 5 533mm torpedoes in a central torpedo tube. This has a 208 person crew, can go 37 miles an hour, and has a displacement of 2,369 tons, and a required RP of 75,000. This is a 4.3 rated vessel sitting at rank 3. Going on to armor, you'll see it's the same turret armor as on the Tribal, the 3.2mm anti-fragmentation, as well as anti-fragmentation armor on the smaller guns of 12.7mm thickness. And going on to X-ray, you'll see it is effectively the same thing. You've got the engine, transmission, fuel tanks, all the same basic stuff, as well as the radio station and bridge. You can also carry 2 Mark 7 depth charges, as with all the other destroyers, as well as be able to get extra rounds for both of your main guns, being that the 120mm cannons and the 102mm cannons. Now, the final destroyer we're going to look at in rank 3 is the battle class destroyer, so HMS Armada. So here it is. This is a fairly interesting looking vessel, a bit bigger than the Tribal, as well as having some actual hull armour. So this first off has two sets of twin 4 or 5 inch QF Mark 4 cannons with 1,200 rounds of ammunition, and also a 4-inch turret as well. And of course you can see those main cannons at the front, very big guns. Then at the rear you have the smaller turret by the looks of it. In the centre of the ship, and at the rear you will have the 3 dual 40mm Bofors mountings. You will also have a 2 turrets of single Bofors cannons, and then 10 533mm torpedoes. This is a 4.3 rated vessel yet again at rank 3, sitting at a fairly decent RP price of 89,000 RP, 260 person crew, yet again a 37 mile an hour top speed, and a displacement of 3,400 tons. Going on to armour though, we'll see that the turrets have far better anti-fragmentation armour of 12.7mm thickness. You also have some, sort of on the throat of the turret, you have 9.53mm anti-fragmentation. The deck in some places has got 6.35mm anti-fragmentation, as well as the same being the case on a lot of the parts of the bridge and the lower parts of the hull. All the turrets basically have those there's 2 armor types basically, apart from on the throat of the turret, so pretty basic there. On X-ray you'll see it's the same stuff yet again, apart from the ammo elevators being added on the main turrets, but it is the same basic stuff overall. And on mods you'll see there's no extra weapons, although you can get improved shells for your 40mm guns and your 114mm guns. Now that we looked at that, we're going to move on to the only rank 4 vessel, the only light cruiser on the British tech tree, the HMS Enterprise. Now, this vessel seems pretty good. It's a 5.0 rated vessel at rank 4. The main gun, it has got a set of dual 152mm Mark 12 cannons, which, pretty big guns compared to what we've previously seen. There are also turrets which appear to have, there are 5 turrets of single 152mm cannons. We then also have 3 sets of single 4-inch Mark 5 cannons. We then have also 2 sets of the 40mm quads, which are obviously anti-aircraft. We then have 6 individual 20mm cannons and 6 dual 20mm cannons. So as you can see, huge amount of anti-aircraft capability there, lots of anti-ship capability. And not to mention you have the OS-2U float plane on the back there in the Royal Navy or RAF sort of colours on the catapult, although I don't think that is usable at the moment. Now this has a crew of 574, max speed of 33 miles an hour, displacement of 9,500 tons, and this will cost you exactly 100,000 RP to acquire. This is again a rank 4 at 5.0. Going into the armour though, we'll see that it's a lot more heavily armoured than previous vessels. The turrets, on the most part, have 25.4mm anti-fragmentation armour. The frontal section of the hull actually has some 38.1mm anti-frag armour. Some various parts of the hull near the front also protecting, I suppose, the ammunition load, have 57.15mm anti-fragmentation armour. And then the sort of section where the engines are has 76.2mm of anti-frag. So that's quite a bit of protection there. The rear bit of the hull, presumably as it slopes down, protecting the crankshaft for the propellers, has got 50.8mm of anti-frag. And then the very top of the deck and in some bulkheads have also got 25.4mm. So it's a very heavily protected vessel, so definitely something that you're going to be wanting to get your hands on fairly soon. Now, looking at the premium vessels, there's only 2 so far. There is the HMS Haider, which is a tribal class as far as I know. Tribal class. So this is the same as the normal tribal class, but with upped anti-aircraft capability, having more 20mm cannons. So that's pretty decent there, and also has the, worth mentioning, has the 40mm quad cannons as well. So that's got that, and it's also got this special scheme, but it is a standard tribal class effectively. And the tribal class is a good vessel, so I would advise giving this a look if you wanted to gain access to the British Naval CBT. And the other option is the Fairmile, which is a 3.7 Fairmile D 5001. This is a standard Fairmile by the looks of it. Carries two types of torpedoes. It carries two 533mm Mark 8s and then two 450mm Mark 15s. So you got some different types there to pick from, as well as having a nice camouflage on this vessel. But there we go. So that was the British Naval Tech Tree. Quite a lot to go through there. I tried to give a decent amount of detail on these vessels, as much as I could really, going through. I think the HMS Enterprise is definitely, at least for me, a personal goal of a vessel to grind to. But yeah, so thanks a lot for watching the video. If you did enjoy, please consider leaving a like, maybe even subscribe to the channel. If you do, that would be very much appreciated. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.